In the quiet of a hospital waiting room, the sterile smell of antiseptic and the hum of distant machines filled the air. I sat there, numb, staring at the cold linoleum floor, trying to process the words that had just been spoken to me. Your brother's condition is critical. We're doing everything we can. The doctor's voice echoed in my mind, a grim reminder of the reality I was now facing. My twin brother, Alex, had been in a car accident, and the prognosis was bleak. As I sat there, a whirlwind of emotions churning inside me, I felt a gentle touch on my shoulder. I looked up to see Jamie, Alex's best friend, standing beside me. His eyes were filled with a mix of concern and something else, something I couldn't quite place. "Hey, it's going to be okay," Jamie said softly, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. I nodded, unable to find the words to respond. Jamie had always been there for Alex and by extension for me. He was the kind of friend who showed up without being asked, who knew when to speak and when to just be present. As he sat down next to me, I felt a strange comfort in his presence, a warmth that seemed to cut through the icy fear gripping my heart. But then, something unexpected happened. Jamie reached out and took my hand, his fingers interlacing with mine in a grip that was both firm and gentle. It was a simple gesture, but it sent a shockwave through me. In that moment, everything else faded away. The beeping of machines, the distant murmur of voices, the cold sterility of the hospital. All I could feel was the warmth of his hand, the steady pulse of his heartbeat against my skin. It was as if a switch had been flipped, and suddenly, I saw Jamie in a completely new light. I had always known Jamie was special, but this was different. This was a connection that went beyond friendship, beyond the shared history we had with Alex. It was a moment of pure, unadulterated clarity. I knew without a shadow of a doubt that Jamie was meant to be more than just a friend. He was meant to be my partner, my confidant, my everything. It was a realization that hit me like a freight train, leaving me breathless and reeling. As we sat there, hands clasped tightly, I couldn't help but wonder what this meant for us. Alex was fighting for his life, and here I was, experiencing a moment of profound connection with his best friend. It felt wrong and right all at once, a confusing mix of emotions that left me feeling both guilty and hopeful. But as I looked into Jamie's eyes, I saw a reflection of my own feelings, a mix of fear, hope, and a deep, abiding love that had been there all along, waiting to be acknowledged. In that hospital waiting room, amidst the chaos and uncertainty, I found a moment of pure, unadulterated clarity. The moment Jamie held my hand, I knew we were meant to be. It was a realization that would change the course of our lives forever, a journey that was just beginning to unfold. As the days turned into weeks, Alex's condition slowly improved, much to everyone's relief. The hospital became a second home to both Jamie and me. We spent countless hours by Alex's side, talking to him, reading to him, and even sharing silly jokes to lighten the mood. Through it all, Jamie and I grew closer, our bond deepening with each passing day. We found solace in each other's company, a quiet understanding that seemed to transcend words. One evening, as we sat in the hospital cafeteria, sharing a cup of coffee, Jamie looked at me with an intensity that made my heart race. "You know, I've always admired your strength," he said softly. "The way you handle everything with such grace. It's inspiring." I felt a blush creep up my cheeks, unsure of how to respond. Jamie had always been open with his compliments, but this felt different, more personal. "I could say the same about you," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. "You've been a rock for both Alex and me. I don't know what we would have done without you." Jamie smiled, his eyes never leaving mine. In that moment, I felt a surge of emotion, a mix of gratitude and something deeper, something that made my heart ache with longing. But just as quickly as the moment had come, it was interrupted by a nurse rushing towards us. "Alex is awake," she said, her voice filled with urgency. We rushed back to his room, our hearts pounding with a mix of excitement and fear. As we entered, we found Alex groggy but conscious, his eyes fluttering open. "Hey, buddy," Jamie said, his voice choked with emotion. You had us worried there for a bit. Alex managed a weak smile, his gaze shifting between Jamie and me. You two look like you've been through the ringer, he joked, his voice hoarse. We laughed, the sound filling the room with a warmth that had been missing for too long. As Alex recovered, Jamie and I found ourselves navigating a new dynamic. Our feelings for each other were becoming harder to ignore, but we were both hesitant to act on them. Alex's accident had brought us closer, but it had also made us acutely aware of the fragility of life. We didn't want to risk losing what we had, but at the same time, we couldn't deny the pull we felt towards each other. One day, as we sat in the hospital garden, watching the sunset paint the sky with hues of orange and pink, Jamie turned to me. I need to tell you something, he said, his voice serious. I looked at him, my heart in my throat. I think I'm falling in love with you, he confessed, his eyes filled with a vulnerability that made my heart ache. I was taken aback not by his confession, but by the realization that I felt the same way. I think I'm falling in love with you too, I whispered, my voice barely audible. In that moment, everything seemed to fall into place. The uncertainty, the fear, the longing. It all made sense. We were meant to be together, and nothing could change that. But as we sat there, holding hands and watching the sunset, I couldn't help but wonder what the future held for us. Alex was on the road to recovery, but our journey was far from over. We had a lot to navigate, a lot to figure out. But as I looked into Jamie's eyes, I knew that whatever came our way, we would face it together. The moment he held my hand, I knew we were meant to be. And now, as we stood on the precipice of a new beginning, I knew that our love story was just getting started. As Alex continued to recover, the dynamic between Jamie, Alex, and me began to shift in ways I never could have predicted. Alex, ever the perceptive one, picked up on the subtle changes in our behavior. One afternoon, as I sat by his bedside reading to him, he interrupted me mid-sentence. You and Jamie, huh? He said, a knowing smile playing on his lips. I felt my cheeks flush, caught off guard by his directness. What do you mean? I stammered, trying to play it cool. Alex chuckled, his eyes sparkling with amusement. Come on. I've known you both my whole life. I can see it in the way you look at each other, the way you talk. There's something there, and it's more than just friendship. I was taken aback by his observation, but also relieved. If Alex could see it, then maybe it was real, maybe it was worth pursuing. Does it bother you? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Alex reached out and took my hand, his grip surprisingly strong. Why would it bother me? I want you both to be happy. And if you find that happiness with each other, then I'm all for it. His words were a balm to my anxious heart, a reassurance that our bond was strong enough to withstand this new dynamic. Meanwhile, Jamie and I found ourselves stealing moments together, stolen glances and whispered conversations that felt like secrets shared between just the two of us. One evening, as we walked back to the hospital from a nearby cafe, Jamie suddenly stopped and turned to face me. I've been thinking, he said, his voice serious, about us, about what this means. I looked at him, my heart pounding in my chest. And what does it mean? I asked, my voice barely audible. Jamie took a deep breath, his eyes never leaving mine. It means that I want to be with you, fully and completely. It means that I want to explore this connection, to see where it takes us. His words sent a shiver down my spine, a mix of excitement and fear. But just as I was about to respond, my phone rang. It was the hospital. Alex had taken a turn for the worse, and they needed us back immediately. We rushed back, our hearts pounding with a mix of fear and adrenaline. As we entered Alex's room, we found him struggling to breathe, his face pale and his eyes filled with panic. The doctors and nurses sprang into action, their movements swift and efficient. Jamie and I stood by, helpless and terrified. As they worked to stabilize Alex, I felt Jamie's hand slip into mine, his grip tight and reassuring. In that moment, I knew that no matter what happened, we would face it together. Hours later, Alex was stable again, but the scare had left us all shaken. As we sat by his bedside, watching him sleep, Jamie turned to me. Life is too short to wait, he said, his voice filled with determination. I want to be with you, and I don't want to waste another moment. I looked at him, my heart swelling with love and gratitude. I want that too, I whispered, my voice choked with emotion. In that moment, amidst the fear and uncertainty, we made a promise to each other. A promise to be brave, to be honest, and to embrace this love that had found us in the most unexpected of circumstances. The moment Jamie held my hand, I knew we were meant to be. And now, as we faced the future together, I knew that our love would be our guiding light, no matter what challenges lay ahead. As we left the hospital that night, hand in hand, I couldn't help but feel a sense of hope and excitement for what the future held. Our journey was far from over, but with Jamie by my side, I knew that we could face anything. Little did I know, the biggest twist in our story was yet to come. As Alex continued to recover, Jamie and I found ourselves navigating the complexities of our new relationship. We were both excited and nervous, eager to explore this connection, but also aware of the challenges that lay ahead. One evening, as we sat in Jamie's apartment, sharing a bottle of wine and talking about our dreams for the future, Jamie suddenly grew serious. There's something I need to tell you, he said, his voice filled with a mix of nervousness and determination. I looked at him, my heart pounding in my chest. What is it? I asked, my mind racing with possibilities. Jamie took a deep breath, his eyes never leaving mine. I've been offered a job in another city, he said, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. It's a great opportunity, but it means I would have to move, and I want you to come with me. I was taken aback, not by the job offer, but by the realization that Jamie wanted me to be a part of his future, no matter where it took us. But what about Alex? I asked, my voice filled with concern. He's still recovering, and I don't want to leave him alone. Jamie nodded, understanding my dilemma. I know it's a lot to ask, he said, but I think this could be good for us. A chance to start fresh, to build a life together. His words were tempting, a promise of a future filled with love and adventure. But the thought of leaving Alex, of not being there for him as he continued to recover, filled me with guilt. As I grappled with the decision, I found myself torn between my love for Jamie and my loyalty to Alex. It was a difficult choice, one that kept me up at night, my mind racing with possibilities and fears. But as I sat by Alex's bedside one afternoon, watching him sleep, I realized that my brother would want me to be happy, to follow my heart. You should go, Alex said suddenly, his eyes fluttering open. I looked at him, surprised. What do you mean? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Alex reached out and took my hand, his grip surprisingly strong. I mean that you should go with Jamie, he said, his voice filled with conviction. I want you to be happy, and if being with Jamie makes you happy, then you should go. I'll be fine, I promise. His words were a balm to my anxious heart, a reassurance that our bond was strong enough to withstand this new dynamic. With Alex's blessing, I found myself standing on the precipice of a new beginning, a future filled with love and adventure. As Jamie and I packed our bags, ready to embark on this new journey together, I couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement and anticipation. Our love story was just getting started, and I couldn't wait to see where it would take us. But as we stood at the airport, ready to board our flight, I felt a pang of sadness. Leaving Alex behind was harder than I had imagined, but I knew that this was the right decision for all of us. As I hugged Alex goodbye, I felt a lump form in my throat, tears threatening to spill over. Take care of him, Alex whispered in my ear, his voice filled with emotion. And take care of yourself. I'll be here, cheering you on every step of the way. His words were a reminder of the love and support that had always been there, a constant in our lives. As Jamie and I boarded the plane, hand in hand, I knew that our journey was far from over. But with Jamie by my side, I knew that we could face anything. The moment he held my hand, I knew we were meant to be. And now, as we embarked on this new adventure, I knew that our love would be our guiding light, no matter what challenges lay ahead. As Jamie and I settled into our new life in a new city, we found ourselves navigating the ups and downs of a long-distance relationship with Alex. But despite the distance, our bond with Alex remained strong, a constant reminder of the love and support that had brought us together in the first place. One evening, as we sat in our new apartment, sharing a meal and talking about our day, Jamie suddenly grew serious. "I've been thinking," he said, his voice filled with a mix of nervousness and determination. I looked at him, my heart pounding in my chest. "What is it?" I asked, my mind racing with possibilities. Jamie took a deep breath, his eyes never leaving mine. "I want to marry you," he said, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. "I want to spend the rest of my life with you, to build a future together, to grow old with you." I was taken aback, not by his proposal, but by the realization that this was what I wanted too, more than anything in the world. "Yes," I whispered, my voice choked with emotion. "Yes, I want to marry you too." In that moment, everything seemed to fall into place. The uncertainty, the fear, the longing. It all made sense. We were meant to be together, and nothing could change that. As we embraced, tears of joy streaming down our faces, I knew that our love story was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. But as we started planning our wedding, we realized that there was one person missing from our celebration: Alex. We knew that we couldn't get married without him by our side. So we decided to surprise him with a visit, to share our news in person. As we stood at Alex's doorstep, our hearts pounding with excitement and nerves, we knew that this moment would be one we would never forget. As Alex opened the door, his face lit up with surprise and joy. "What are you doing here?" he exclaimed, pulling us into a tight embrace. "We have some news to share," Jamie said, his voice filled with happiness. "We're getting married, and we want you to be there with us, every step of the way." Alex's eyes widened with surprise, but then a slow smile spread across his face. "Of course I'll be there," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "I wouldn't miss it for the world." In that moment, as we stood there, the three of us united in love and joy, I knew that our journey had come full circle. The moment Jamie held my hand, I knew we were meant to be. And now, as we stood on the precipice of a new beginning, I knew that our love would be our guiding light, no matter what challenges lay ahead. And so, our story continues, a journey filled with love, adventure, and the unbreakable bond of family. If you've enjoyed our journey so far, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming and inspiring stories. And be sure to watch our videos and comment down below with your favorite part of the video. We can't wait to hear from you and continue sharing our journey with you. Until next time, stay true to your heart and never be afraid to follow your dreams.